Alrighty, so I hope you enjoyed that. I've watched that video a couple times and it's helped me understand. Because sometimes when you first look at higher order functions and you're used to writing longer form functions, either for loops, it really is kind of like, why are we doing this? And I think this video really helps make that more clear. Some of the things he touched on that we haven't touched on yet that we will, right, are factory functions. We'll at least touch on them when we get to programming, OP, object oriented programming, because right now we've been doing functional programming. Even though we've used objects to write methods, we will then, fairly soon in the next couple weeks, start writing object oriented code. And the other thing he really introduces here is something I've really been thinking a lot about is like part of the reason when you're writing code like we are to handle all the different DOM renders and all the different data states and all those things, this is why React and other frameworks were built, was to make this process a little easier. Okay. So again, there's some topics here that, yes, I know we haven't discussed, but I think it's good to be introduced to them. I hope you walked away with at least, now when we say higher order functions, you have a little better idea. All right, so here's our task today. Our program requirements today, is to implement one of these higher order functions for our average. Because right now we're using a for loop, and the for each. The for each actually does fall into a higher order function because we're passing it a function based on it iterating over, right? So you've kind of already been using them, maybe not clearly articulated as that's what they are, but we can actually implement one of the more contemporary higher order functions for doing the sum here. Because this is still a lot of code, right? I mean, the good news is we've refactored it to make it more concise, meaning more efficient, where we're looping only over the my data once to get both of these numbers. So let's see, right? Let's do a little look at and in this case, it's going to be the reduce because, I'm going to come over to MDN here because I already have open the reduce page that talks about, right? It's a method for executing user supplied reducer callbacks. And we'll see this. So we'll have an array, right? And now for us, it's an array of objects. So we have to be able to reference that. We're going to call reduce. We're going to pass an accumulator in the current value, and then we're just going to take whatever that accumulator is and add it to the current value, and then we will set the initial value. Now, this actually is a little more verbiage, although, and it may not look like it's any better than what we've done. But again, hopefully you're starting to see as we do things, right? Like it's cleaner. And then you don't have as much code and you can do a lot more things in here because this is the part that would change is the algorithm, the things that you're going to have different about this particular iteration of code. Okay, but while we're here, it is good to look at those other ones as well, like map is in here. I believe filter should be in here as well, right? Filter is one I want to talk about, yeah, maybe even after this one. For each is in here as well. Let's see if they don't actually reference these as higher order functions necessarily. Matter of fact, it's always good to ask, like, is the for each a higher order function? Yeah, for each is. Yeah, they come in hand. Yeah, but okay, I thought so. As I was saying it, I was starting to question whether that was true. Okay, so let's go back to the reduce. Okay, so now how do we implement this for our average? Okay, so let's come back over to code. And first I'm going to write it just for the MPG, okay? Because I think it'll be a little clearer. I'm gonna comment out this code, okay? And so here's what we can do. We can actually say first we can say const sum MPG, okay, equal to, Okay, and what we need to first is have the my data, right? The array of objects dot reduce. Okay, so now in here, right, we're going to have, now I'm going to use function. You definitely could use arrow functions to make this even cleaner as far as less code, but I've been trying to stick with this because, like I said, I read it was better. So now we have a function that is going to have, right, there's two things, right? I'm going to call it a sum, right, and an object. And I'll show you why in a minute. Okay. So then, okay, then we'll have our brackets. Okay. So in this case, we're calling reduce on an array of objects. Okay. For every object, right, here's the object we're iterating over, right? We're going to pass it a sum as well. And the sum is the thing that's going to summize, add up, right, what we have inside the object, or what we're going to reference inside the object. Because now we're actually going to say, now return, okay, sum plus, in this case, object mpg. Okay. So first, and the other thing we're going to do here, and they did it outside, okay, in here, they set the initial value outside of here, but you can also just do it right here inside to say 0, okay? So that sets the initial value, okay? All right, so this is, sorry about that noise. So this is a reduce function, a higher order function, okay? Iterates over the my data, the array of objects, has an initial value set at 0. It's going to return whatever that sum is, okay? Again, it's like plus equal as it iterates through, plus the object MPG. Okay, so let's first see this run and look at it. Because the other thing I don't always love, and let's just show you this, okay? So let's just, because this is going to be, actually, that's the other thing is, I should have you fix that right now, right? Is it only shows the average when we enter data, and it should show it all the time. Maybe I'll end with that after this one. Okay, so now, here we are in our dev tools, right? We're going to call reduce. Right? So the first time through, right, the sum is set to 0. Let me move this over so you can see it, right? And then here is the object, right? Here's all the key value pairs inside of our object. So we're going to return sum, which initially for the first one is 0, right? Plus whatever is MPG to get the sum of the MPG. Okay, so let's just keep running through. So now the next time through, because the first one was 15, okay, because it took the MPG, now it's that. So now this is object is 5.7. So now we add that. Okay. Oh, we haven't, there we go. There we calculated that number. So this is what it's doing, right? It is iterating over, coming up with that sum. So let's just let it run. Right now it breaks it because had some code here from what it's just the references, not a big deal. We're going to fix this in a minute. So this is to me, if I look at it, okay, it's nicer than this for sure. But the problem with this is what? If we have to write it again for sum of trip cost, then it'd be like, wait a minute, you're kind of like, why do it again? You're already iterating here. Can't you just write this so that you have, right? And so I started researching it. And I came up with what I figured was the answer was just returning an object, okay, that I'd call sums. And it was cool because I actually mostly had the solution. Then I went to ChatGTP and I asked them, and they gave me where my solution needed a little work. So this is what you do. Okay. So in this case, we're still going to call sum, right, an object, and we're still going to return. But now we're going to return something right here, right? So we're going to return an object. Okay. So let's return an object. Now, what do we want in that object, right? So what do we want in that object is right? What the MPG, right? Whatever that is. So sum, so let's just call it MPG is going to be equal to sum plus this value for MPG, right? Yes. Okay. Now I'm going to have another one that'll be trip costs. And this will be equal to, right? Okay. I just had to kind of refresh my memory a little bit. So in this case, right, when the sum is going to end up being an object, okay, that'll have the values for both trip and MPG. So in this case, we'd need to go sum.mpg. And I'll show you how this works in DevTools because I think it just makes more sense when you see it. And then we'll have trip cost, okay, as the sum of trip cost, okay, plus, again, you'll see the object in a minute, sorry, plus object dot trip cost, okay? Now, because when initially we set up this object, right, it'll create it for us. We don't have to set the initializer here, and I'll show you why in a minute. Okay, let's go look at this code. All right, let's get rid of that. All right, let's do this. Let's enter a number. Okay, so now we're calling reduce, right, on the my data. When we first run it through, the first time we run it through, what happens is it grabs as the sum the first object, okay, because it hasn't returned this object yet. So it just says, okay, I'm going to look at the first one, right? And then this is the next one. So now it says, okay, run it. And now when you run it the first time, the first iteration across, right, let's let it go ahead and run, right? So now it's created the object that it's going to return, right? So now we have sum is an object that has MPG and cost that is being totaled, right, by looking at whatever is in that object and adding whatever's in sum and adding whatever's in the object, and the object is what it's iterating over. Okay, so let's just keep running a couple here just so we can see it. So now we just roll back over. We can see that these are totaling up, right? And so we'll just keep letting it go. It's got several it needs to do here. Again, now, okay, so now we know it worked. It did error out, but that's okay. Okay, so now we know we got sums, but what, and then in this case, because ultimately when it returns, that's what I should have stopped it on. Let's do that actually. So let's do it here. Stop it on the next line here before here. And the reason we want to do that is that we already now have the sum, right? So now we have the total summation for the MPG and for the trip cost, and it's in an object. So now what do we need to change here to make this work? All right, so at this point, what I want you to do is this is going to be your challenge, right? So I want you to go ahead and commit this code where we're at right now, saying we got the sums. Make sure you have the sums correct, okay? So we can check it against some simple data. I'll do that once I stop. You can do that. And then, right, attempt to fix this right here. Okay. And also fix that the average comes up every time it re-renders. So there's two things you're going to do. First, fix the average MPG and average trips cost calculation here, right? Should be pretty clear. If not, I'll show you when I do it. Do those, and then also change it to where it outputs, right? How would we do that? So there actually would be a little different here, right? Because this, it's based on where it's run. So check that out. That's your challenge. So first, what I want you to do here is commit this implementing reduce for sum, and then attempt the challenge, and then we'll come back. All right. Hope that at least brought that a little more into real life how you might use it. This is just one example. There are many.